Let's talk to Mark Littlewood, Director of Popular Conservatism UK, who's presumably not at the summit on the future of energy security. Very good morning to you, Mark.
Morning, Mike. Great to see you.
Good to see you. We're not in a good place here this morning, are we? We can talk about the trans debate in a minute if you wish, but let's talk about the economy, which you know a thing or two about. Rachel Reeves over in America, according to the I newspaper, she's trying to steal investors from under Donald Trump's nose because she's trying to make out that Britain is a safe haven for global business. How do you think she's going to manage to persuade them of that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think her best hope is to argue that all things are relative, right? Because on any objective assessment, things are getting rockier and rockier for businesses in the UK. You only need to look not just at the economic numbers, which are grim enough, but numbers around business confidence and consumer confidence, which are tanking. Yeah. You know, people are looking ahead to the next few months, are feeling more and more nervous and more despairing. I mean, what she should do, and what President Trump has brought into sharp relief, is remove tariffs that the UK imposes on imports. Yeah. I mean, you would seem to believe, if you listen to much of the mainstream media, that Donald Trump's the only man in the world to ever impose tariffs on foreign goods. We've been doing it here in the UK forever and a day, and so is the European Union. Right. So if we've suddenly decided that tariffs are bad, why aren't we getting rid of our own? That might be a good start for Rachel Reeves, but I don't think she's really going to go there, or at least she's not going to go there as hard and fast and decisively as I'd like.
No, and they seem to be also, I mean, to go back to the empty chair scenario down there at the Energy Summit on energy security, they seem to be trying to sell Britain as some kind of, you know, ultra-modern, republic almost, that's got this incredible kind of idea that nobody else has got, which is that we're going to be producing our own energy from the sea and the sky and the sun. And we're never going to have to use any oil, never going to have to use any gas or coal, and that'll all be a thing of the past, and we'll all have a very, very lovely time. I mean, business is not being attracted by this, because I think Miliband has admitted that despite all the money they put in to renewable energy, they haven't actually created any jobs.
Yeah, it's crazy. And the real thing to look at is energy prices, right? So if you're seeking to compete with the United States of America, and, you know, good on us, we should compete with the United States of America, a major factor that businesses will look at, as well as our increasingly worrisome tax regime, is that energy prices in the UK are about 4 times that of the USA. Right. So if you're running any form of energy-intensive business, manufacturing, for example, put aside everything else. Even if we had a benign tax regime, tax breaks, corporation tax falling, income tax falling, even if we had that, anyone considering investing might very well say, well, if I build my factory in the United States of America, my energy costs are going to be a quarter of what they would be under Ed Miliband in the UK government. I mean, that is a massive deterrent to setting anything up in the UK, certainly on heavy manufacturing. I mean, the reason our steel industry is collapsing is that we've made it almost impossible to do any kind of heavy manufacturing, but almost any business. Right. I mean, if you just want to keep the lights on, it's going to cost you a lot more than if you were based in Austin, Texas or Miami, Florida. Right. So Ed Miliband needs to get on Rachel Reeves' side, if we're to take Rachel Reeves at her word, and actually have falling energy prices being the metric by which he will be judged, not increasing energy prices.
Well, they keep promising to make the energy prices fall, but somehow magically they keep going up. They just went up in April again. I dare say before the summer, the energy price cap will rise even more. And this while the oil price is falling and gas prices have been at an all-time low for a while. So how does that work?
Well, I mean, I think the bewilderment of most of the rest of planet Earth, Mike, we actually got quite decent energy resources in the UK. Yeah. We could frack for shale gas. We could drill more in the North Sea. We could even go for more coal mining. So we've got reasonable resources here. But under Ed Miliband, we're refusing to go for them. Because you can only do windmills and wind and
exactly. I'm sorry for breaking into a smile, but just as you were speaking there's a guy hoovering around the chairs at the summit on energy security. I mean, it's a pretty good summation of where we are, really, isn't it?
I'm surprised they can afford to actually switch the Hoover on with how much energy prices are zooming up.
I wonder if it's one of those cordless ones that they have to charge, or whether it's it's actually plugged into the wall. Let's have a quick mention of Starmer's appalling performance yesterday in Parliament. Kerry Badenoch actually looked like a leader of the opposition, which hasn't been often the case. Not often you could have said that. Let's have a quick look at what she said about Keir Starmer and how he doesn't know what he believes.
This is a question about moral courage, Mr. Speaker, about doing the right thing even when it is difficult. And the truth is, he doesn't have the balls. The Prime Minister only tells people what they want to hear. He only tells people what they want to hear. He is a weather vane who twists in the wind. He cheered an ideology that denied safe spaces to women and girls because he thought it was cool to do so. He hounded a brave female MP out of his party for telling the truth he accepts now. And now he is hiding behind the Supreme Court judgment. And isn't that because he doesn't know what he actually believes?
And we're not going to bother playing his answer because he doesn't answer the question the same way he didn't answer the question about whether he thought he was wrong on the law when he said that a transgender woman is indeed a woman, or indeed whether we'd apologise to Rosie Duffield. I mean, pretty poor from Starmer, wasn't it?
Absolutely woeful. And you can tell he's sort of lawyer obsessed, that he's a lawyer rather than a deep thinking politician. Because although we all need to abide by court rulings, court rulings don't tell us what to believe. Right. I mean, if you're in court pleading your innocence and you're found guilty, well, you'll have to abide by the court ruling and the punishment. But you don't have to suddenly change your mind that you were guilty after all. So if Keir Starmer doesn't like this court ruling, you can say, well, obviously he will abide by it. It's the law. But I don't like it at all. He could bring forward legislation to change that court ruling. I mean, it wasn't so long ago that he thought that 0.1% of women in this country did indeed have dangly bits, and that's 35,000 people. He's now suddenly decided, because of judicial ruling, he no longer believes that. So the idea that the Prime Minister's opinions and beliefs are set by what a court rules is utterly bizarre. There's no grounds for him changing his mind. All he has to say is, I'll abide by the law, or indeed he could promise to change the law if he doesn't like the law as interpreted. So it's incredibly odd that he's just, I mean, talk about, going with the wind, whatever the courts tell him happens to be the law, suddenly becomes his belief.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, he never fails to disappoint. I mean, I was saying during the 6-day absence of Keir Starmer saying anything at all about the Supreme Court ruling, I kept saying, well, as a man who talks about the law all the time and how legal framework is what runs the country and what is most important to him is the carrying out of the law and the administration of the law and all the rest of it, I thought, how has he not come out and talked about this new ruling by the Supreme Court, which will now govern us all? But I thought he would be a bit more nuanced about it, and I thought he would say to those people who he used to support, well, obviously we'll ensure that your rights are not invaded, but I was wrong to have said that legally you are a woman, and now I'm going to retract that because the law states that you're not. Nevertheless, if you wish to live as a woman, you can if you want. He could have done it so many different ways, but he's so wooden and so hopeless that he manages to completely alienate everybody in the room.
Yeah, that's right. But again, as I say, Mike, if all of the things that he was saying prior to the Supreme Court ruling was what he genuinely believed, then him and his government could bring forward legislation to change the law. The Supreme Court ruling isn't set in stone forevermore. That's an interpretation of their interpretation of the law as it presently stands. If Keir Starmer and most of his cabinet continue to believe, and I don't see what would have changed their mind, that trans women are indeed women. I mean, a preposterous view, in my opinion, but nevertheless, they're entitled to have their preposterous views. If he sincerely believes that, why isn't he bringing forward legislation to change the law and out-trump the Supreme Court ruling? Why is he meekly bending over? The job of Parliament, a sovereign Parliament, is to set the law. And if you don't like the way that the law is being interpreted by the courts, if it's turned out that the law didn't quite mean what you thought it meant, you can bring forward legislation on the floor of the House of Commons to change it. Why is he not doing that?
Well, this is
why
it.
has he changed his mind?
And this is exactly why people end up going to the courts to get a ruling, as you say, on something which is not necessarily a matter of fact, but then it becomes a ruling. You know, the facts can be around the ruling, the facts can be part of the ruling, but you can have the facts be contradicted as well by the ruling, you know, because if this ruling had gone the other way and they decided that in fact a woman who was a trans woman is a woman and legally is protected with all the rights that a woman has and has all the access to the spaces, you know, I would have bet my bottom dollar that would have been challenged by somebody, because that's how it got to court in the first place.
Yeah, it could have been challenged by somebody, but Mike, we've got too much of rule by lawyers in Britain.
I agree.
These sort of rules should be set by Parliament.
Yeah.
So had the court ruled that trans women are women, I would be looking for a political party to say, well, if we get into office, we're going to change the law. It's the job of Parliament to change the law. So if you're grossly unsatisfied with the present interpretation of the law, if you need to have the Supreme Court adjudicating on a grey and unclear area, which they've now done, okay. But if you now don't like the law as it stands in any area, it's the job of our politicians to change it, not just meekly go along with the status quo. So I'm delighted with what the Supreme Court came up with. I mean, a very rare victory for common sense in the United Kingdom, but I am bewildered that it took a court to actually determine this. I mean, what else are we going to ask the court to determine? Whether the law of gravity is really true, whether the Sahara is sandy, whether water is wet.
Yeah.
It is a pathetic indictment of the weak leadership of this government and others in other political parties, that a court has had to decide this, not the politicians we elect. Absolutely woeful.
In madness, yeah. Mark, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Mark Littlewood, Director of Popular Conservatism.